My name is Josh Friedman
And where are you currently located?
in Philadelphia,
Which part of the city?
in South Philly.
Oh, can you tell me about the first time that you met Emet?
Yeah, the first time we met was a If Not Now orientation training.
Do you want to point out where you are?
I'm in the back,
Where are you in the back?
the second person on the left. hmm
And do you want to point out any of the other people that you recognize?
I think I'm standing next to a person named Danny, and then on the right to me is Milo. Don't remember the person next to them. That's Pele of something with an R. I don't remember his name. Jen is in the far left. That's Ro Adler. A couple people down. Abby. Next to Abby is Sarah. Next to Sarah. Next to that person is Gavi. And then Tall. And then this is really like 10 years ago. Do you remember these people? Rebecca Hornstein, Abe Gutman, Emmett's in the middle, Sarah's next to him, Maris is over here on the far left. Sure, I mean, again, it was almost 10 years ago, but yeah, I remember it must have been in August or September 2016. We met at the Repair the World office in West Philly on 40th and Market. It was like a 2-day training or something, 3-day training. And yeah, I mean, it was my first kind of introduction to If Not Now. So a lot of what the organization is about, what their values are, the theory of change, things like that. A lot of group activities. Emmett was very active participant. I think I must have learned that he was in rabbinical school around that time. So I don't know. I guess there was a spiritual component. Was someone that I thought was cool and wanted to be friends with. hmm
Do you remember this day?
Yeah, kind of.
And where are you in this picture?
I'm right in the middle with my mouth open. I remember his name now, Adam. That's Adam behind me.
Do you recognize anyone else?
Yeah, Sarah, Jen's on the right. I think that's Joel next to Jen. Daniel, that might be meet Daniel. Yeah, wow.
And I'm next to you
Oh,
on the right.
oh my God.
That's when I had long hair.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's so hard to recognize people. We're so different now. I'm trying my best. Yes, I see it now. Hello. Looking good in your crown hat.
Yeah.
I remember it was fun. Yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, I remember being at this room quite a few times, and this time was definitely a more fun or like, I don't know, more lighthearted moment with all of us. And I feel like it was also before all the stuff with J.K. Rowling really blew up, so we were like
Yeah.
much more excited about Harry Potter. Oh, definitely. I feel Yeah, all the trans people in this room would probably not be there if it was the current 2025 version. I, I do see a Slytherin banner. I feel like I have a vague recollection of him being really into Slytherin. I think that was his house. And his hair matched his Slytherin, so I feel like that also confirms confirms the house appointment. I I remember I just remember goofing off a lot this day. I remember it just being kind of silly. We all have little branches. Was this the last time I saw you? I don't even
No, I think you were at the living funeral, right?
Yeah, I was. That was a very sweet day. Yeah, of course. I mean, it was really impactful. I think it was the only time I've ever experienced something like that. I remember talking to my dad afterwards and being, yeah, one of my friends is dying, and I guess I'm just getting to the age where that happens. And I was only like 24 or something at the time. And my dad was like, Josh, you're a little young to be to be feeling that that's where you're at in your life. And yeah, one of those things, right, where it was, it felt very, there wasn't a clear blueprint to me in terms of how to grieve the loss of someone that was in my community and really sick. And this was, or the living funeral just felt like a really nice way to kind of impactful way to bring everyone together and honor Emmett's life. And I remember specifically that there was opportunities to draw or write on a banner. And I remember the yeah, I remember just a bunch of people like, speaking and offering kind of sharing experiences, things that were really just memories of Emmett that were really
Do
important. I think I must have written some Hebrew phrase or something. Yeah, if you have the pick, for sure. That looks like my handwriting, maybe. I wrote, I think it says Hamakom Hazeh.
right, because we were singing Manora Hamakom Hazeh.
Yes, exactly. Exactly that. And then, yeah, and then it says, what, what does that say?
You made this place beautiful. That's
Yeah.
gorgeous. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, Emmett really was a really huge impact on me, and I was really great. I was grateful to kind of contribute in my small little way. And, I love an arts and craft, so I do still have the pamphlet. What did I learn? I learned a lot. I mean, first of all, I think it was really valuable for me as moving to Philly was kind of the first time that I really formed queer community around myself, and Emmett was an integral member of that. And being being in kind of learning from Emmett just the ways that queer identity, how Emmett moved through that, understood it, was definitely inspiring and helpful for me as a newly out queer person figuring things out for myself. I think that Emmett also was very grounded in terms of his values and what he wanted, and not being afraid to act on that. And I don't know, it was always refreshing to be in his presence, and I think I learned a lot about being honest with myself and being ways of communicating. I said earlier, Emmett was probably one of the first people that I was really in community with that was going through such a difficult health situation. And and I was woefully unprepared to support, but he made it really easy. He was, these are the things I need, and this is the ways you can show up, and I'm right there with you. That's great. It's I think not always clear for people to understand how to support one another through community, and with Emmett, he made it really easy. And he built this, he had this whole network around him, even when we weren't face to face in person with one another. He was really good at being connected through various different social media channels, and was, if he was unavailable to answer, this is the person that I'm communicating through right now. It was surprisingly easy to stay on top of where things were at and how things were going, what kind of needs were coming up, like organizing. I had done some organizing in university before I moved to Philly, but here was, I don't know, was a community that I was kind of new to. I knew some people, but I don't know, I learned a lot just in terms of how organizing can work and what kind of systems could be in place that Emmett was really good at. I visited him before. I was kind of there throughout it. I was there when he was living on his own and then moved to the hospice spot up in the suburbs and Chestnut Hill. And then I moved again. And yeah, I I think my communication was mainly through it's hard to remember, but I I remember when things were starting to get more difficult for him in terms of like being able to live independently, and that's kind of when I want to be here for you through that. Like we had been participating in, I don't remember which team it was. Maybe it was the hive keeping team or the actions one. I don't remember totally, but I had been involved, right? We were organizing this project, right, around moving American Jewish community away from investing in Israel, and then it became very, yeah, it was a very natural kind of transition into organizing around support for one another for Emmett in this. And I think, yeah, at first it wasn't totally clear if this was going into hospice and the transition of into death or whatever. At least for me, it wasn't totally clear. And I think progressively the technologies that became really helpful were online technologies of staying in communication, and then also relationships that I had with people that were also doing this work and supporting Emmett. We had like a variety of nurses that were also in the community too. That was really helpful knowledge to have. And I, at the time, I was working in social services adjacent area, so I was also kind of building my own trauma-informed approach to navigating harm and communication. And I think that those tools were really, really helpful for processing kind of what was happening. Yeah, I mean, I remember there was meal trains, and then there was physical present. People just they like people were asking for people to be just physically present. I remember there was a lot of support around helping with Roxy. Roxy? Yeah. I yeah, I think it I know that there was a lot of people that I didn't really know that were leading it. Yeah, I don't totally remember who was in charge of a lot of the I kind of thought that Emmett was kind of leading a lot of it. Maybe that was incorrect, but yeah, I don't know. I remember, yeah, I think that the things I specifically were was trying to connect and I was trying to show up, once every other week or so. Didn't have access to a car at that time, so I remember being kind of a barrier to getting to places, but I did see him more frequently when he was living in West Philly. It was hard. It was really hard. Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty clear that things were kind of not getting access. I know that he was experiencing a lot of frustration with his medical care, and I was feeling kind of frustrated too about it and kind of at a loss. When I would be there, I would take care of random stuff that was kind of just needed around the apartment, and there was sometimes someone there to help, and sometimes there wasn't, and that was, I don't know. Now I know other people that face similar kind of health diagnoses, and the kind of care that they receive compared to what I remember Emmett receiving. Thank God people were stepping in because it just felt, I don't know. He deserved more. Yeah, definitely. He wasn't, yeah, it was, I guess there was probably more people around when I was seeing him in hospice. He wasn't always cognizant. He was on hospice, so he was sleeping a lot most of the time I was there. Sometimes he would wake up and say some profound things, I need more medication. He would be like, "Nurse, come over. What's going on?" I remember, yeah, the people that I remember being there were always like people in West Philly, queer, Jewish community or adjacent. Don't remember really ever seeing his family there. Maybe they were there, but I didn't ever really interact with them. I don't think I interacted with them until much later. And I remember I remember it was important to me that the yeah, I was starting to, I don't know. I remember every time I went, I need to talk to someone about this was it was I feel like the community that I was experiencing this with was present, but that all these other parts of my life had no clue that this was going on. And so I don't know, it was really important for me to kind of share with other people in Philly that this was happening. And I remember coming with close friends or partners to Emmett's hospice with them. I remember there being a lot of, yeah, I remember a lot of pictures, a lot of drawings on the wall. I remember the dinosaurs. I remember the dinosaurs. I don't remember if I did any of them, but oh my God, yes, Mickey. Mickey was at the 2016 training too. That looks like my handwriting. I don't know.
This
Maybe.
looks like
Maybe. I mean, I definitely could have made it. I don't know why. I don't know why I would have made that. I guess as a sign. Let people know where the hospice room was. I haven't seen any of those folks for such a long time now. Let me tell you. I think there's one big lesson is that there's no right way to organize. There isn't that organizing needs to have a multitude of accessibility points, that your organizing isn't effective if it's not taking into account disability, that disability is a strength of our movement, and we have what we classic phrase of we have what we need, no one's gonna save us, we have to we take care of us. I think Jewish practice really grounds time in a pretty useful way. It's helpful to it's helpful to have this like weekly moment of rest, right? That we're going to kind of gather together as a community and honor rest and slowness and stillness. Think it's helpful to Jewish practice has very specific ways of honoring death and dying that are really grounding when faced with illness and death. Coming from a rather traditional Jewish background, it's very grounding to know, helpful to know, oh, there's specific roles that can that you can kind of connect to and be a part of the grief process and community with different people. So that certainly is helpful. Yeah, and it was and I thought it was incredible how his teachers ordained him as a rabbi. That was, yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you think about rabbinical school, at least I have thought about rabbinical school as this formal, you have to go through the things and you have to check off the thing. I've learned this amount of Talmud and whatever. But here was this recognition pretty by the institution, by RRC, by these rabbis that were recognizing that despite not maybe not reaching some of these formal requirements, Emmett had met the essential requirements of being a rabbi. And I think that also there's always right in Jewish practice, right? There's the text and then there's the spirit of, and I think being able to have that kind of negotiation between the two things is also really, I think, beautiful. I think we're queer and trans people have been have developed systems of safety and networks of care for generations. And and I think in each generation, maybe there's this feeling recreating the wheel a little bit, right? We were recreating the wheel a little bit, but at the same time, we weren't. We were also drawing on previous knowledge and right, modeling some of the things that we saw from the AIDS epidemic and drawing on those lessons. But these are crises that our communities have faced over and over again, continuing to face. And yeah, I mean, it's integral. And I think bigger than any one of us, gonna queer and trans people are gonna exist no matter what, and whether we play a role in making the next generation of queer and trans people, queer and trans youth have tools for dealing with these things, they're going to have access to some things no matter what. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, especially in this climate, right? I think such an act of resistance and empowerment to yeah, to demand resources, to shift priorities towards building institutional knowledge, supporting queer and trans youth, bring back the gay and straight alliances in public schools. Oh, 100%. 100%. Obviously not all queer. It wasn't all queer. If not now, Philly wasn't all exclusively queer people, but it was mostly queer people for sure. I think that yeah, the first kind of for me, the first queer Jewish community I associate with that, if not now, community. I think I think that the experience also kind of made me become more comfortable with navigating issues around bodily autonomy. I felt Emmett made it really easy to feel very comfortable around him, but there was some discomfort coming up, right? Around just not knowing, being a young person and not really knowing how to deal with this very serious illness and yeah, not having a lot of medical knowledge to really understand what was going on. And to be in community with Emmett where Emmett would yeah, it would be very clear about like what he needed in each moment, how I could be there. And sometimes it was as much as we would just hold hands in the hospice room or sitting with one another. That physical intimacy, even if it wasn't romantic or whatever, I think for me was was really impactful. I was a person knowing very little about what was going on and in community with them, not certainly not the closest person to him, and feeling comfortable or empowered to be able to show up in the best way that I could, and knowing that that was going to be enough for that situation, I think was really moving. Yeah, I think about him a lot in terms of when we would take the street. I think he was such a motivation for me to remain engaged in Palestine solidarity work because he was unequivocal about his support for Palestine, and despite everything that was going on for him, he always made time for that. And yeah, it was inspiring for me to be like, yeah, I can do that too, and I want to. And I think that that's, for me, the main way that I try to honor his legacy is by staying engaged and by continuing to organize for Palestine. I think that that's what brought us together, and that's how I want to remember that time together. I mean, I think, again, I said earlier, it was probably one of the first times I ever really had someone in my community go through such something like that. And I think the COVID pandemic, I had a series of other kind of not similar in this way. It wasn't exactly like this. I think that pandemic affected everyone, all of us, and it certainly affected people close to me. And I think the way that I approached what was going on was definitely impacted by this previous experience I'd had. Understanding how important mutual aid was in supporting one another through illness and taking proper precautions, taking that seriously. I think I have a lot more awareness around immunocompromised people, what it means to be in community with folks that need that kind of there to be more. I don't know what's the right word, but our society just does not support people that are immunocompromised enough, and understanding what support actually looks like and tangibly can look like. I have a much better idea of that about that now, having gone through this. It was a lot of experiment, I felt to me.
Right.
Definitely have to start somewhere. Yeah, I mean, again, that's what I mean, that was just central part of our relationship. Yeah, it remains, I mean, remains a huge reason why a huge basis for organizing in Jewish community now. I think I'm not really in community with people that aren't standing up in solidarity with Palestine. That's kind of the I think for me that's one of the most important challenges in in American Judaism now. I'm so grateful to have been able to kind of start. I mean, not start, but like I was able to kind of plant some seeds in my first kind of building of community in Philadelphia with Emet. Emet was probably one of the first people I met when I first moved here. It just it was it was really refreshing and exciting to be with a bunch of queer anti-Zionist Jews, and and that being basis for community. This last decade has really been a journey, Noah. I'll tell you that much.